So, folks, there is record snowfall in the California mountains. There is a long lost lake that reemerged, and there's coastal flooding, potholes in Los Angeles streets. There is rain everywhere and flooding that's coming along with it. Hi, I'm James Lott Jr. This is Independent Voices, my podcast here on my channel, JLJ Media, in association with the Big Eye of California, IAB Cal. And, I was thinking the other day, because I've been in a flood and it was not fun. My house flooded out. The house that I'm in right now flooded out about 10, 15 years ago. And I had insurance. It helped me out a lot.
Yay.
Helped me out. It did. It really did. But I want to tell you, according to CNN, 30 million Californians are under flood watch. That's from LA to San Diego. That's Fresno to Sacramento, where my family is. That's from Santa Barbara to Temecula. I'm trying to go where this state is big. But 30 million is like most of California. And so under flood watch. And the rains, it rained today, and it's supposed to rain later tonight and tomorrow. So it's not going away anytime soon. I was going to talk to two people who are going to tell you why flood insurance is important to have and important to offer. See, both sides of things. Both my guests are working with the Hartford. Of course, you know that name, folks.
Ooh.
I actually been to the headquarters in Hartford, Connecticut years ago. They're there, but actually they both work for Hartford. So our first person, make sure I get this correctly. She has been in the P&C industry for about almost 30 years. I just can't believe. I think she was probably 2 when she started. I guess.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
With that. Mm-hmm. But for the last 15 of the 16 years, she's been the sales director for Hartford Flood for California, Oregon, and Washington. So here in the Pacific Northwest and West. Help me welcome Charna Loughran. Is that right?
Yay.
I said it. Okay, I said it. Yeah, I said it. And this person, obviously, he was 2 years old also when he started, nearly 30 years in the industry handling claims. But for the last, we'll say, several decades, he's been working with the National Flood Insurance Program as a senior technical training specialist and sales director, handling 5 states. He's just the overachiever. But he's currently working for the Hartford as the flood transfer and training consultant. Help me welcome Phil Ranger. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Welcome, you guys, both of you.
Thank you.
First of all, how are you guys doing today? How's everybody doing today?
Very good. Very good. There's a little break in the rain for a couple hours, so we'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it. So I want to get for sure. So, Sharna, you're in California, and Phil, you are back east.
Yes, I'm in Philadelphia. Phil from Philly. Woohoo.
Oh my God, I just caught that.
Beautiful weather over here today. It's actually, well, I say beautiful. It's probably be about 52, but it's sunny, and I'll take it. I'll take it.
Well, when you live in places like I lived in Pittsburgh, which is on the other side of the state, you get used to. It's weird how you acclimate and go, "Oh, it's 40 degrees. It's warm. I can wear shorts." In California, we're crying at 60 degrees. So it's kind of like it's just where you live. I totally get it. You get
exactly. Exactly.
Rain, don't go away. It's coming back another day. I mean, it really is these days. And I first want to ask you, both of you guys can make some opening comments. Why, if you're a homeowner or even a building owner or store owner or anybody, why is it important now in California? Because for a while we had no rain. Now we're getting it. Why is it important to have flood insurance? And I'll ask Charna if you want to start first.
Sure, absolutely. So, us people that live in California, I've been here my whole life. We don't think flooding is a risk because usually there's words of drought and wildfires a risk, but flooding not so much. But as we've seen, when we do get an influx of weather, which lately has been happening, it's not a little bit of rain over a long period of time. It's a lot of rain all at one time, which causes a lot of different flooding risks that people don't think that they are susceptible to. If I don't live near a creek or a stream or a river or some sort of body of water, I don't need flood. And unfortunately, there's a lot of Californians finding out right now that is not the case. So we have these atmospheric rivers providing a ton of rain all at one time, and you get the water pooling, you get storm drain backup, pools are overflowing. There is a lot of things that fall under flood insurance that are not covered under a property policy, be it commercial or a homeowner's policy. And I bet if you asked any person if they have flood insurance under their homeowners, they would say yes. Unfortunately, they will find out the hard way when they turn a claim in that is not the case.
Exactly.
That's a separate policy. So it's a risk that, people don't realize is a risk until it's too late, unfortunately. And water damage is expensive and messy.
Yes, it is. For us, I know folks at home, I know it is personally.
Yeah. So being able to have someone cut you a check to get that damage cleaned out right away, so it doesn't cause more damage is huge. And being prepared for that claim when it happens, peace of mind. It just Mother Nature is fickle. You just don't know what's going to hit when, so it's just better to be prepared.
Before
you start, I want to cut in just really quick and comment two things. One, she is absolutely correct. It also helped when I had to be displaced, because they also paid for my pack out of what they could save. It also helped me with the pricing of the hotels I had to stay in for 4 months. Not glamorous, folks. Staying in a hotel 4 months is not glamorous, as you think it might be. It helps it's a lot we'll talk about what come up, but it's like I'm laying testimony. Yes. And secondly, you said something really interesting, that it's people are thinking under homeowners that some of the stuff's covered and it isn't. That's interesting. Also, it's good to know what you have covered, first of all, covered. But it reminds me of earthquake insurance. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit. It's like,
yep.
Because those things cover certain things that don't, so.
Right. That's not, it's not on their typical policy. And the last thing you want to do is find out what you don't have coverage for when you need the coverage.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Little too late by then.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, when water hits the ground, it's classified as groundwater, and groundwater, as Charna said, is excluded from most commercial policies and homeowners policies. So it's really, really important that the insurance agents are offering flood insurance, because it's not typically covered under a normal policy. And the other thing about the flood policy is a lot of times people think that the flood policy, the national insurance flood policy, only covers from some sort of rain events or hurricanes, but that's not true. The definition actually says that it covers water from any source. So any source could be somebody's driving down the street and hits a fire hydrant, and that fire hydrant floods your street and your home. Well, that would be covered under a flood policy.
Phil, that's what happened to me.
That's how it happened to you, really?
It's funny you just said that. I'm like, does you know my history? Do you know my records?
That's crazy.
But seriously, what happened to me? I have pictures of the fire hydrant just spewing in the air and just lighting, because my house was slightly on an angle. Anyway, so yes, I know exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important for homeowners and business owners to understand before a situation on what kind of, to make sure that they have adequate coverage. Because one of the things about the flood policy, the government flood policy, is there's a 30-day waiting period from the day that you pay your premium. So people don't realize that. They think, oh my gosh, there's a storm coming in 3 weeks. I'm going to get flooded. I'm going to go out and get a flood policy tomorrow and I'm going to have coverage. Well, not necessarily. It's a 30-day waiting period.
Why is it a waiting period?
And that's the main reason, so that when the public sees it, like on the East Coast, a hurricane is going to hit land in 3 days, that not everybody is calling their carrier saying, I need flood insurance like now. And then they think they can do that, but unfortunately they can't. The agent will tell them, I'd be happy to help you with that policy, but for voluntary purchase, there's a 30-day waiting period. They do waive that waiting period at loan closing, but only at a loan closing. Otherwise, you have a 30-day wait for that coverage to go into effect.
Wow.
And, I think here in California, what's been interesting, because, we had that big December, early January storm, right? And we had flooding from that. And then I think people thought, well, I didn't get flood then, and it's fine. I didn't get flooded in that one. It's in California. It's just, we're good now. We had the one storm. And now we're at the end of March, and we are still getting the storms. So even if they got the policy then, they wouldn't have covered them for that specific, storm. But all these other ones subsequently that they've had past that 30-day wait, they would have had coverage for. So I think, people just assume it's not going to happen to me. And obviously everybody hopes it doesn't, as well as any other damage to your home or life, right? You don't want it to happen, but unfortunately it's hard to control. And, it's better to be safe than sorry at the end of the day.
I agree. And that's funny because you mentioned something the other day. I turn on we have a local channel 5, KTLA, and I turn on in the morning and I'm hearing blah, blah, blah. That's my street. And I went outside and from the last, I think it was last week's rains. Yeah, I think it was like Tuesday, Wednesday again or something like that. And my whole street got flooded. The whole corner got flooded. Because you said something in the beginning, folks need to understand, especially in areas where there wasn't a lot of rain, the ground can't take. I used to work in farm and ag, so I know this stuff. You can't get, it doesn't take all the soil at first. So a lot of it stays on top because there's just so much, it hasn't had a chance to really go under. So that's where the flooding comes in, folks. That when she said you're not near a beach or a creek or a lake, you don't have to be. That's why in LA and a lot of places in Los Angeles, I know for sure, you're seeing all these major puddles and I say puddle, but major flooding.
Yeah.
Watch out, please. Anybody wants to comment on that?
And we see, the infrastructure in areas, especially like in LA, where there's a lot of older, piping and the infrastructure, and then continue to be built on and built on and built on. So it's overtaxed in a normal sense, but then you add all this extra runoff from the rain. That's when you see the storm drain backup or the gutters not being able to keep up. With these storms, we've seen a lot of wind, high winds,
yes,
which have been crazy. And that provides also the debris, right? So you get these trees blooming. It's March. We're seeing everything blooming, and then the wind picks up and kicks that all off. And all of a sudden now you've got the storm drain back up because of debris, right? And so it's hard to keep up with all of the, with all the different potential. It's coming at us from all different directions. And, the snowpack, the Sierras up where I'm, Northern California, we're used to seeing snow. This is still obscene amount of snow, but Southern California has gotten an obscene amount of snow. A lot of times we hear about weather in California and it's Northern California specific. This year it is statewide, right? Everybody's getting it. And so it's hitting in a lot of different areas. And, we had obviously a lot of fire damaged areas in the state. And that causes even more risk to an area because of there's no vegetation to stop the runoff of the water. And then you see those, like you did in Montecito, Santa Barbara area, you see those mud flow. Mud flow is also covered under the flood policy. And, the last thing I would want is for a consumer to, thank God, be spared by a wildfire in their area to be followed up by getting their home destroyed in a flood and not have any coverage, right? That seems like probably a not good situation. So, as far as I'm concerned, insurance in general is peace of mind. And I hope I never turn in a claim. That just means something bad happened to me, right? I don't want to turn the claim, but I'm going to make sure I have all the coverages necessary just in case something does happen. I know I'll have the coverage I need.
Yeah, we had hail in Inglewood. We had tornado watches down here. Like it's a little crazy in Southern California.
Yeah,
I'm like, I walk outside. I'm like, am I feeling like snow? What's happening over here? Yeah, it's a little crazy. But I agree with you, Charna. I'm a big fan of preventative and having everything just kind of ready. So, Phil, why should folks in California, I already asked her a little bit, why should folks in California get flood insurance, in your opinion?
Well, you have a lot of different hazards out on the West Coast than you do the East Coast. But again, everybody should have flood insurance because it's not covered under the normal policy. But when I think of California, I hear about all these atmospheric rivers and the gazillion feet of snow that you're getting out there. And now we have spring coming and spring thaw and more rainstorms. That is just going to cause so much water to come cascading down those mountains. And again, as Charna said, with a lot of that land being so charred with the wildfires, no vegetation to absorb all of that water, and the ground, when it gets charred like that, becomes hard as a rock and it just comes flowing downhill. So I think everybody in California, no matter where you live, you should have flood insurance. And as I said, it's not just some sort of weather event that's covered. Charna mentioned something about I forget what area, where LA, where you were saying that the water system, the piping is really old. Downtown Philadelphia, we have water mains breaking constantly and flooding city streets. Well, that water source would be covered under a homeowner's policy if you had a homeowner's policy. Where if you have a basement out in California and you get water in your basement, you may have like an endorsement added to your homeowner's policy that may give you a couple $1,000s for like sub pump backup or something like that. But for a major disaster where you get 4 or 5 feet of water in your basement, that's a lot of damage. And another thing out in California, which we don't have as much of that kind of construction out on the East Coast, but I always, when I'm training, I ask people like, well, first of all, the definition of a basement is a floor that is below ground level on all sides. Just has to be 1 inch or more, because that floor 1 inch or more below can trap water. So I always reference in my training, like, is there any other room in a building that you think could classify or as a basement? And everybody's like kind of thinking and scratching their head. And then I mentioned the Brady Bunch house. What did you have to do with the Brady Bunch house when you walked in their front door? You stepped down into a sunken living room. Well, if that living room floor is below ground on all sides, that living room is classified as a basement, and you're very limited to what's covered in a basement.
I'm glad you said that, because relating it to me, my back room was an add-on, and you have to step down into it. Because for me, I had a true basement. My house in Pittsburgh, I had a true basement. It was a true basement. Yeah, I'm like, in Los Angeles, you don't have basements in Los Angeles. Like, what are you talking about? But there are spaces underneath houses. So you're right about that. There's enough space where people have to go underneath the house for the plumbing and stuff. And that's where the flooding happened for me, because it started from underneath the house, but my back part, the front part of my house didn't get flooded. Just the back part, the 5 rooms back here that were added on. Because you have to, I was like, somebody gets to come to my house, step down when you get to here, this part of the house. And they're like, step down. Oh, I'm like, yeah, step down. It's funny you say that. So, but you're saying for California reasons, it's considered a basement, so to speak, because it's all my sides are the same level below the rest.
If that floor is below ground level on all sides and that water has no way to get out of that room, it gets trapped, that classifies as a basement. And when you have a basement, there's only 17 items covered under the building coverage. And it's mainly the items that maintain the structure, like your electric, plumbing, like furnace, hot water heater, stairwells, things like that. And when it comes to contents, like your personal belongings in a basement, there's only 4 items covered. And that's a portable air conditioning unit, closed washer, closed dryer, and food freezer. Only a freezer. If you have a refrigerator in the basement, not covered, just a freezer.
I have both. That's funny. Well, not my down here, but I have a freezer and a freezer. And I learned something new. I love doing this show. I learned something new. I didn't know that. Because when you said basement, I'm going, we're in California. We don't have basements. Not in Southern California.
That's the hard part. The NFIP definition of what is a basement versus what everybody else thinks what a basement is different, right? And so it's always good to understand that, when you're working with either the clients working with the agents or agents working with their insurers, to understand the limitations of coverage or what's available based on the type of risk that they have.
That's great. Okay, now I want to switch to the carrier side, to the agents. So why they should be having that as a program. Because there's a program through the Big I. Phil, can you start off, and then Charna jump in? So Phil, please start off with, you have a program actually through Trusted Choice. You can actually offer agents to offer their clients.
Agents should absolutely offer their clients flood insurance, because as we've been saying through this whole presentation, it's not covered under the normal policy. So agents have to protect their clients. They have to know what they're offering. They have to make sure that they're helping their client insure all of their risks. And one of the things, it's important that the agent offers it for E&O issues. Because, like we said, the consumer thinks, oh, I have an insurance policy, everything's covered. Well, if the agent doesn't offer that person flood insurance and say, look, your homeowners does not cover flood insurance, this is why you need an NFIP policy to protect themselves. If they don't offer that NFIP policy to that client, it could open up an E&O issue for the agent, meaning, the insured wakes up with 3 feet of water in their home. Who's the first person they're going to call? Mr. Insured, the insurance agent. What kind of coverage do I have for my home? You don't have coverage because you don't have flood insurance. What do you mean I don't have flood insurance? So that's when we tell our agents it's really important that you offer it to everyone. And if they decline it, I always tell my agents they should get a signed waiver stating that we offered and you declined it because of that phone call. I have 3 feet of water in my basement. What kind of coverage do I have? Sorry, Mr. Insured, we offered you flood insurance 3 years ago and you declined. I don't remember you offering me that. Yeah, you did, and you signed right here. So it's really important for agents to offer it for peace of mind to their clients.
Charna, what do you have to add to that?
So I would speak to the, like you were saying, the Hartford, which is a trusted brand name within the insurance industry. Mm-hmm. We are a write your own carrier for the NFIP product. And we do have a special deal set up for the IB Big I members that they can enroll with Hartford for a competitive commission as a value add to their membership. So, you get a competitive commission, and your insureds get the backing of the Hartford and our claim service. And I am also the sales rep for all of California. And so you get a dedicated sales rep for flood. So if you don't understand the coverages enough to feel comfortable selling it to your insureds, we are happy to provide training. We walk you through the system. We show you links to different marketing, if there's marketing you'd like to do. So we do provide a lot of services focused to helping agents be able to confidently sell flood insurance. Mm-hmm. And we make it as easy as possible. So I think that we've had really a lot of success with some IBA members that have a lot of flood policies. And I know there's going to be some testimonials later on the website from some agents that we work with that can attest to how easy it is to work with the Hartford and the NFIP. And so, it's an extra step potentially, but as a risk advisor, right? We're not just insurance agents. We want to be risk advisors. We want to say, here's your risks and here's the policies that are going to cover those risks. And you also don't want your insured's neighbor talking to your insured about the flood policy they got from so-and-so down the street, and your insured now going to another agent to get a flood policy because they didn't know you offered it, because you didn't talk to them about it, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to lose a client to another agent because they were more of a risk advisor than you. So yeah. I think, we want to give the product, make it available, make it as easy as possible, provide training, provide support, and competitive commissions through the IBA membership. So.
Is it pretty easy to go through there and get the training? Also, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, and we can get folks enrolled if they're not currently enrolled, and people can contact me. I can look their agency up to see if they already are enrolled with us. Some people may have gotten enrolled 10 years ago and forgot, right? So I always look first, do we have a producer code, make sure everything's up, and if not, we get them the enrollment paperwork to complete. It's pretty simple. And then we get that into our contracting team to process, get them set up. It's probably a 7 to 14 day, depending, start to finish process to get somebody set up to quote flood. So we do recommend that people get their producer code set up now, not when somebody's knocking down their door to get a flood policy, because it does take a little bit of time. Right. And the NFIP does require that in order for a producer to write a flood policy, they do have to have 3 units of flood specific CE. So you want to make sure that somebody in your office has taken that course, and then we can get that user set up so they have access to quote on the flood as well. So once we get you set up, the system is actually quite simple to use. There's been some changes to the rating, FEMA, the way FEMA rates the NFIP, and it has really streamlined the process. It's put the answers in a box, hit rate, and you'll get a quote. It's very simple. So, and again, we have, not only me to walk through it, we also have online chat, we have customer service phone numbers, we have a lot of support staff to make things as easy as possible. And we also have Phil, who does trainings, as well as he is our transfer consultant with the Hartford. So if agency members want to move other NFIP flood policies to the Hartford, they are able to do so with the help of our awesome transfer consultant and other rollover staff, we make that process very simple as well. So everybody can consolidate their flood policies to one carrier.
People want simple. So that's why I asked. I'm glad people want it to be so kind of easy. Couple of clicks here, tell them how long it takes. We want people to ask questions. They want people to be able to reach somebody. So you have the chat. So I'm glad you answered all that. You answered half my questions I was going to ask you. So I love that.
Awesome.
Because it's very important because people nowadays, we do a lot of online and, you want to know if it's a person behind that. Can I, if I'm an agent, I want to know more about it for my company. Is it easy to follow? And if I'm a consumer, can I go on? I mean, I just want to, you don't want to have to work for it so heavily.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand flood is kind of a one-off addition to, it's not the typical home, auto, umbrella, commercial property, small commercial policy. So it's not maybe the main focus of most agencies. So it can be overwhelming. You don't understand the coverages. You're not sure how to rate it. Yeah. So we do provide those services to provide the training and like the explanations about the basement or what coverages are available and what things go into the rating and where to find kind of what the flood risk is. And I would say a big misnomer for most consumers and agents is, well, they're not in a flood zone, so they can't get flood policy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Everybody is in a flood zone. Everybody can get a flood policy. Now, are they in a high risk flood zone or a low risk flood zone is going to be either where like your lender's requiring it versus not requiring it. But everybody can get a flood policy. Everybody's in a flood zone. And if you look at the historical data on those flood zones, they are wildly outdated. So they are not accurate. And I think people in California are learning that in the last 3 months, right? It's like, oh my God, I mean, they say I'm in a low risk flood zone, but this area is flooded now in the last 3 storms. Like what's going on? Right? I mean, a map, a letter on a map doesn't necessarily mean a lot, right? So it's more peace of mind, making sure you have the coverage in case. And I think the last stats we've seen, and they might be a little outdated, Phil, you could probably agree with this, that, what is it? A couple inches of water can cause $25,000 in damage, right? And I always say in California, you can go ahead and increase that number, right? Because it's going to cost more in California to fix that damage. And so you start to think, okay, you're looking at how much a premium is, and do I want to come out of pocket each year for, maybe $600-700, depending on the area, or do I want to come out $25,000, $30,000 at the time of a loss, right? So I think that again goes back to that peace of mind factor, right? You don't be laying in bed hearing the crazy amount of rain continuing for the last 10 hours and thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen, right? Am I going to wake up to, a foot of water in my home? And do I have the money to fix that if that happens? So it's just a better place is to have the coverage.
Exactly. And there's one other thing I just wanted to touch on. A lot of times the public will think, well, I don't need flood insurance because I can apply for disaster assistance. We'll just have the government pay for it. Well, first of all, one of the requirements to get disaster assistance is you have to obtain a flood policy. So you got to get it anyway. Yeah. And the other thing about disaster assistance is it's very limited resources. I think last I recall, it was only about disaster assistance. You could only apply for as a grant like $36,000. What's that going to do? Nowadays, nothing. And the basic form of disaster assistance is an SBA loan. So it's got to be paid. You got to qualify and you got to pay it back. And you got to pay it back. And you got to get your own flood policy on top of that.
And the caveat, one more on that, is that it has to be declared a disaster in order for that to even kick in at all. So if the area is not declared a disaster by the federal government, you don't even have that as an option at all, right? So that is a big piece of what we've seen out there.
One of the last things I want to ask is about, is there a difference between commercial and residential?
So from a flood perspective, we write both. When the agents are rating it, it is very simple as far as you answer the question, and it's residential or commercial. The rest is very much the same. From a coverage perspective, there is more coverage available on a commercial structure than there is a residential structure. So max limits is 500,000 building, 500,000 contents on a commercial. And for a residential, it's 250,000 for building and 100,000 for contents. And on a NFIP flood policy, each building that is not connected by a roof line or a walkway like a stairwell has to be insured separately. So that would be for each individual building. That would be the coverage limits.
Exactly.
Okay, very good, very good. Phil, Charna, thank you so much for your time. It was very eye-opening. I learned some stuff also I didn't know. And for and even though it's all over the country, all over the world watches this stuff, but people in California, Oregon, Nevada, look at this. Look what we're talking about. People in Washington, look what we're talking about. Again, you're right. Flooding is having the rain. Mother Nature's doing whatever she wants. That's line. She's doing whatever she wants. We probably created this, who knows? But either way, it's creating all kinds of flooding disasters that are happening for whatever reasons. And I'm with them. I have insurance for everything. So I believe I worked in insurance for years. I believe in insurance.
Good.
So I do believe in it. I really do believe in it because I've had to use it several times.
Again, that's the you don't want to use it, but you're glad you have it when you do. And
you have it.
Every picture I see of the snowpack, right? And this last storm that we're getting hit with yesterday and today, but I can't remember how many more feet of snow. And I was up in Reno over the weekend, and I'm just like, holy Moses, it's a lot of snow out there already. And, the way that melts is going to wildly affect over the next month to 2 to 3 months, potential flooding risks. So that 30-day wait is get the policy now so that in 30 days or more, when that snow melt hits and we start to see mass flooding, you'll already be covered.
Exactly.
Yes, please, please, please. TrustedChoice.com, IIABCal.org. Start there. Also, the Hartford. I will have you, Phil. You can go first. If they want to find you or talk to you, where can they find and talk to you?
They can always reach me at, let me get my my phone number out here. My phone number is 610-386-7516. My email address is Philip with 2 L's .Rager, RAGER @thehartford.com.
Very good. And Charna, what about you?
Absolutely. Love to help anybody. My number is 916-294-1351. And my email address is Charna, CHARNA .Loughran, LOUGHRAN @thehartford.com.
I'm James Lott Jr., and this program you can find on any audio streaming service from iHeartRadio to Spotify to Google and Apple. Just look under Independent Voices. We are there. You can also find us on my channel, which just celebrated 3 years in the business, as Channel J Media this week. I started during the pandemic.
That's awesome.
Good for you.
It worked out. It worked out. I've over 50 programs, including this one. You can listen to all of them or watch them. So we make it easy for you, audio or video, of many choices. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your colleagues, tell other agents. I'm James Lott Jr. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.